price looking good, and obviously it's a variety of factors, some indications of global recovery, winter in the northern hemisphere. Do you agree with the view that by late this year we could see oil prices way above $120 a barrel?
Well, I think that's really likely. It is likely that oil will go beyond $100 per barrel, so it's quite foreseeable.
Okay, and what does that mean for Africa's oil-producing nations?
I think for Africa's oil-producing nation, obviously that means more revenue. But I think more important for them is how they manage that revenue. Because oil prices are fluctuated, they need to be able to balance the bust-boom cycle. What do they do with the money? Where do they keep it? Do they foresee that oil might go, the revenue price might go down later on? So I think for them it's more revenue to be able to plug their budget deficits. But quite importantly is the ability for them to manage it well, to take a future downturn in the oil and gas outlook.
I'm glad you mentioned the whole bust and boom cycles, because that's the reason I asked you the question, how will we benefit? We've seen the prices of oil rising, but you've got a situation, for instance, where in the leading producers such as Angola and Nigeria, there have been production problems in Nigeria due to the situation in the Niger Delta. Yes, improved somewhat, but a challenge there. When the oil price had dipped significantly, we saw Angola's economy and budget in distress because the dependency on oil is such a reality for them and for many other producers. What needs to be done to alleviate the dependency and to find more feasible hedging strategies?
I think what needs to be done is for government to develop non-oil sector, and in that I mean mainly agriculture. Because you find that when oil prices improve, there is an imbalance in the socioeconomic landscape. So we need to focus more on things like farming, so people can actually, we spend less of oil revenue on non-oil sector. I think that's the focus. Then you find that some countries probably provide like a buffer. They try to save they try to save excess from that oil revenue to take care of future, to stabilize the economy when that oil goes down. So maybe we want to have something like a stabilization and also to focus on development of other sectors of the economy.
Okay, now we know that although the global economy is recovering, demand of shipments, for instance, to the United States have dropped by 40%. We're seeing an increase of over 60% to countries like India. So we're beginning to see these discrepancies in terms of where the oil will be going in terms of the end user. What do you make of the changing complexion of the global economy, and how will Africa be affected? I mean, you're in Nigeria. It's a major exporter to the United States. Have they started to take advantage of the demand from the East?
Well, I think Nigeria currently is intent and is already in the process of partnering with a lot of Asian companies, because as you said, all demand in America is going down. So we see Nigeria entering into collaboration with China, with Brazil, and I think they are foreseeing that, so they're trying to actually divert their production to the Eastern economies.
What are your views about the other producers outside of the Gulf in West Africa, for instance, the Gulf of Guinea? I'm talking here about countries like Angola, countries like Sudan. What are the prospects for them?
Well, Angola, for instance, because they don't have most of the problems that Nigeria has, even though Nigeria has so much more reserves than they do, you find that because their landscape is a bit more definite, they don't have most of the uncertain issues that Nigeria has. So the outlook for them is very robust. So you find a lot of people actually preferring sometimes to deal with countries like that because it's easier to actually understand the terrain. So I think for them the future is also quite robust.
All right, we know that Africa in total has about 10% of the world's oil reserves, but increasingly the shift is to gas reserves, of which Nigeria has significant reserves within its range. Countries like Ghana also coming to the fore. What do you make of where Africa lies in terms of the next frontier, which is gas?
I think, like you said, Africa has huge gas reserves, but the problem so far has been the resources to actually develop those gas reserves. And you find that there's been a lot of flaring going on. But for instance, Nigeria is driving towards a policy where gas flaring can be substantially reduced. They're currently in the process of partnering, for instance, with Petrobras, so they can actually invest quite a lot in the gas sector. So you find that in the coming year and going forward, Nigeria will focus more in developing its gas reserves, actually tapping into those resources to generate more income for themselves.
Okay, and let's talk about what needs to be done at a regulatory level. A lot's been said about the petroleum industry reforms in Nigeria. This has been deliberated in Parliament. It's supposed to be going to the Senate, and we're supposed to have some clarity, because one of the biggest issues is, despite rising prices of oil, for instance, there's underinvestment in the sector in general because of regulatory issues, because of the costs of production as well within oil-producing economies. How's Nigeria and some of the African economies affected?
For Nigeria, the petroleum industry bill has been a major issue, and the reason being that the uncertainty is immense. I think people just want to know, they need to know what kind of law, what kind of fiscal regime governs their investments. Now, it's been in the news. We were expecting this to be passed into law last year, and currently we understand that hopefully it will be passed sometime in the first quarter. Now, if that doesn't go through, we will be faced with a lot of people are just not going to do much. You know, more than oil majors, it's really been difficult for them to put the kind of amount of money that's required for oil exploration and production. So you find that has actually meant that so far, there hasn't been new exploration, and I think until we sort that out, we need to let people know: is this law going to be passed? Is it going to live, or is it going to die? People need to know for certain, and I think that would really affect the amount of investments that's made in the sector in the coming year.